Calling me an emo person because I have a black sweater and gray pants.
Are you wearing navy on black?
These are not navy, these are gray, and I'm recording. I am having a bad hair day. Anyways, let's get to work. So before we do this, I want to review imaginary numbers. So particularly I. Can I take the square root of a -1? In other words, is there a number that exists that when I square it, it will equal -1? Yeah, everybody's shaking their head. No, there's no way that you can do that, right? So here's the thing. There isn't a number because if I have a positive number and I square it, what would the answer be? Positive. Let me write it out for you. So if I take a positive number, no matter what the number is, and I square it, I'm going to get a positive times a positive. And what will the answer be? Positive, right? Okay, well, what if I take a negative number, right? I have a negative number and I square it. And I have a negative, that negative number times itself, which is also negative. What would my answer be? Positive. So there's no number that exists that when I square it will equal -1. So we make one up. I, imaginary. Okay. So I squared is equal to -1. Consequently, if you take the square root of both sides, you would get that I is equal to the square root of -1. So when we say find the square of an imaginary number, if I say 5 times I, and I square it, I get 5I times, that's not an S, that's a 5, times 5I. What's 5 times 5? 25. What's I times I? I squared. But what's I squared? I squared is equal to -1. What's 25 times -1? And that is our answer. 5I squared bloop, 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 equals -25. Now let's do the next one. If I say -I, yes. Because I squared equals -1. It just does. Wait, so let me explain it. I know there isn't a number that exists.
It's 5i.
Yeah, it's 5i. There isn't a number that exists that when I square it will equal -1. It doesn't exist, so we just make one up. We imagine it. Well, an imaginary number we call I. Probably what some of you guys are thinking, why would you do that? That's dumb. Well, there's a lot of applications that we do in the real world that when you take the square root of something, you might have to take the square root of a negative number. This is the math workaround. But then we usually take those numbers and then square them in some sort of way. And when we square it back, it goes from being imaginary to a real number. Okay, because I squared equals -1. So now if I square this, the square root of 2 squared, in other words, this is going to be I, -I, root 2 times -I, root 2. This is going to be a positive I squared, and then root 2 times root 2 is just 2. Well, what is I? Oh, we're not done. What is I squared equal? Yeah, -1. Yep, you kind of jumped ahead of me and said the final answer would be -2. Yep. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. So we're going to do some more examples like that.